I have the great pleasure to be moderating the next panel, which for me is a fascinating thing. There are there are people who are practitioners, who are theorists, but also people who are pedagogues, who are teachers, and there is a recurrent theme that has been going on for years. How do we teach? What are the traditions in which we operate? What are the legacies within which we teach, within which we train students? How do we learn within those traditions? How do we relate to something that exists in the school that we have just entered as students? So speakers in this panel, and I'll be introducing them one after another as they come to the podium to speak, come from 5 countries across 4 continents and share their pedagogical methods and philosophies, from skills through traditions to opening up to other worlds and cultures. And for the moderation, Barbara and I have come up with a few questions to provoke, such as how do different schools across the world teach, educate and train in scenography? How do they balance the learning of skills, work with traditions and cultural legacies, with inspirations, with innovative practices and experiments? How do they negotiate material practices with the immaterial ideas, concepts and aesthetics? How do they position scenography in relation to other practices? How do they train to collaborate? Do they integrate light, sound, projection, costume, prop making into their teaching, or do they keep them separate as disciplines? How do they form scenography in response to acting and performance, to architecture and performance venues, or to the production as such? How do they respond to changes in society, in culture and politics? And how do they open up to other cultures and other ways of scenographic practices and schools? I mean, these were only some of the questions as provocations, and I'm really very much looking forward to, and I hope that you are too, to hear from our 5 wonderful speakers today. Our first speaker is Jennifer Cobb, who's spacemaker, interior and interaction designer, scenographer, life-centered researcher, core member of the LAME Foundation of Costa Rica, member of the Costa Rican curatorial team for PQ 2023. Please welcome Jennifer Cobb.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. It's super nice to be back here in this stage and share my perspectives from Costa Rica about schools of scenography. Okay, as Pavel was saying, my name is Jennifer Cobb. I'm an interior designer, scenographer, and interaction designer. My journey has been from from interior design, to learn how the body interacts with space, that's the action, and then the end towards interaction design to study more about the behavior. I come from Costa Rica, that's in Central America, for all of you who have doubts. It's not an island, and we're located actually in between the 2 masses of North and the South. This is important for you to understand also how migration had influenced our scenic design practice. And well, today I don't come with a presentation. I'm just going to share with you a video that we put together for you. And it's going to be there, but don't play it yet. I will just tell you when. And I'm here also to channel the voice of my collective, which is called LAMAE Foundation. And LAMAE stands for Memory of the Performing Arts. And it is a project that was born with the goal in mind of building the first specialized archive in Costa Rica and the region of Central America dedicated to scenic arts and performance. And I'm here to talk about our school, but there's actually this huge paradox about me being a Costa Rican scenographer, being here talking about this topic, because I'm going to start with the question, what is actually a school? Most scenographers in Costa Rica don't have formal studies, which means a certified academic degree or certified academic program on theater or scenic design. You can now play the video, please. Okay, as part of the context, there are two universities and two schools dedicated on performing arts, but their programs are just focusing on either acting or dancing or directing. And there are few classes just dedicated to scenic design in these universities. So as I was saying, there's no formal or academic studies, right? And no actually a training program in scenic or theater design. So where do scenographers from Costa Rica come from? You might be asking, right? So we can say that we come from diverse, diverse spaces, and we also have diverse ways of understanding the know-how of scenic design. In Costa Rica, people tend to go somewhere else, going abroad to study, or people learn by practice, or most people have a master or a person that can lead the way to this practice, right? But this also has contributed to create a very diverse ecosystem of professionals from different backgrounds and different know-hows, different approaches to scenography in itself. But as a designer, I know that it takes a while to understand design as a practice and as a discipline, and it involves, method, practice, and also technique. So my anecdote as an interior designer was like, I'm gonna tell you the first time that I got the curricula of my university, and I saw that there was a scenography class, right? And I got super excited. I was like, oh, there is a scenography class here in Costa Rica, that's so cool. But if I want to really become a stage designer, I might maybe have to go abroad, right? Because there's no market here in my country. But luckily for me, I had my professor, who his name is Gabriel Zapelli. He still teaches in the university. And Gabriel kind of led me and showed me the way to get in touch with the theater community, because he knew that I was super interested in this. And as the years passed, I won the National Award of Culture, and that opened the door for me to also become a professor in the university, right? And when I was there being a professor in Veritas University, which is a specialized university of design, arts, and architecture, my colleagues of the Maya Foundation, Mariela Richmond and Carlos Schmidt, were already having this question and this thought in their minds. How might we build a learning community to share and discuss scenography from our Costa Rican context? I'm also here to tell you how PQ had influenced the Costa Rican scenography context. And well, Costa Rica came for the first time in 2015 to PQ, but since 2010, the event and everything was already like having, being there in the minds of different designers. So there was a little seed planted, and there was a huge interest to start building this connection. It has been a journey for us to find us as part of this event, but visiting PQ15 for the Costa Rican team was very important in this journey, and the Costa Rican team came here with one goal in mind. And that goal was to start the first non-academic program of Costa Rica and the region of Central America. Why? Because we wanted to come on 2019 to represent the country as part of the countries and regions exhibition and the students exhibition as well. So this presence and this connection with PQ helped us validate what we do. Listen to this because it's really important. We needed validation in our own countries because, in our own country, because there's, stage design is not that popular. So coming to the Quadrennial helped us to question our explorations and gave us the emotional impulse to develop a funding strategy and to raise a preliminary project to obtain funds from competitive programs of the Ministry of Culture, and also to lay the economic base to start our training project in scenic design. Our first laboratory, as we call it, the lab, was born in 2016, just right after PQ15 happened, and that's the beginning of the Scenic Design Laboratory as the program of La Maya Foundation. And well, we already had like 3 generations of this program. The first generation was in 2016, as I was mentioning, and was the space design and scenography, like generation, let's say. Then we had the costume design for the stage generation in 2017 and the scenic lighting design generation in 2018. So for that first laboratory, we split all the concepts in three programs, right? And this version consisted on 3-year training cycles. But how do we start it? So we, of course, started with a lot of questions. For example, how might we design in our country? For whom do we design? What spatial typologies do we face? What resources do theater, dance, circus, performance groups and artists have for their creations? And we also studied the curricula of different schools, but at the end we found them super rigid and super fixed, since they were built from a vertical narrative with hierarchies and levels. And let's say, for example, you need to know this in order to go to the next level, or in order to go there, right? And so we ended up with this circular approach. It's a more simultaneous approach, let's say, and we divided the contents in three big areas. The first one, we named it the container, which was the study of the built space. The second one, we named it the content, which was the focus on the body-space relationship. And the third one was language, because for the first version of this laboratory, it was super important to start studying the translation between what is written to a new way of visual art. Then we also discovered that all the participants of this laboratory, they had to be hybrids. And we call these people hybrid people for a long time. I mean, we still call them the hybrids. And what are the hybrids? We needed people that had some background in the area of arts and design, but also experience on stage. And for this, we did a casting almost. We did interviews. We asked them portfolios to be submitted, and it was like an election program, almost like Big Brother for you who know Big Brother. And well, the other thing is that the way that we wanted to relate with these people was through a workshop or laboratory way of learning, in which constant exercises were put it out there in order for students to be always thinking and find their way to solve them and to build their own structures and methodologies to solve the space. The other thing that was super important to us was to challenge the figure of the professor. And the role was questioned, and we became error learning facilitators. This also was part of making a horizontal community, right? And we were always sharing and putting into perspective what we were doing. But also we learned how to ask for help. And this is where it's super important for you to locate Costa Rica and position it on the map, because we ask for help from people from the south, such as Emilio Garcia Weby from Argentina, Marcelo Deni from Brazil, Shada Hilarios from Mexico. So people from South America and the northern part of the continent were coming also to Costa Rica to help us with this quest. I'm gonna read you this because it's super important. It says, instability was a premise to all what we did, and practicing instability and how to be stable was a way to enhance horizontal learning. But here comes the paradox. So we were stage designers and scenographers wanting to create this program, but we hadn't the space in which we could work or think about. So we were nomads. Imagine that. It's like a nightmare just to be a stage designer with no space. But then we started to realize that the first space that we were building was a safe space between us, between our community, between the participants of this laboratory and us as facilitators. And then the Alhambra building appeared. Can you put the video on loop, please? and we started to inhabit this place together. We started to read the space as a collective and as a ever-learning community. And so, well, the Maya Foundation is located in a building declared part of our architectonic heritage, is located in the heart of the city of San Jose, and is right at the intersection of two pedestrian boulevards. And these boulevards also constituted an expansion of this laboratory, helping us to get to the public space and putting the public space into perspective. So the body, the otherness, the confrontation with the viewer, it was an ever-changing discourse, right? And understanding speciality for the construction of fiction out of fiction, and knowing the dramaturgy to elaborate and complement the visual discourse, and putting the ritual as the fundamental center of this teamwork. But where are we going? So on 2020, we were working on the second release of these laboratories, but then, of course, the pandemic came, and we wanted to come here with our second generation of students, right? But that didn't happen. We were thinking also of how might we incorporate online classes, because we need to also get in touch with more facilitators around the world and reach other places of Central America, because as I was saying, this is like the only program, like non-academic program or training program of Central America, and so it's super important for us to go and spread and pollinize other countries. And right now we're in this process of making the new research, listening to our context, and wanting to respond to the needs that are existing right now for this community. And well, this is going to be our ever learning program for us as well. And well, the scenic design laboratories, the labs, are experiential. We put in focus how experience works and how students and facilitators bring on continuous learning, and besides the rigidity of the school per se. And well, we have found in the lab an opportunity to build dialogue with an ever-growing sector, and the scene as a field where all diversity of ways of expression enter, a space for aesthetic and political discussion that can positively impact the scene and the times we live in. And that's what I have for you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jennifer, for your wonderful presentation from Costa Rica. The second speaker of this panel is Serge von Arx, who is an architect, a professor of scenography, artistic director of the scenography department of the Norwegian Theatre Academy, and an external professor at the Danish National School of Performing Arts. But also Serge is a very close collaborative PQ who has served as curator and now is on the jury. Serge and I will be clicking your PowerPoints. Okay, it is working.
Is it working?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes, that was a very dark voice. And I also see that unfortunately the text or the images are very dark. That's probably because there's so much light in Norway now that I underestimated it, and everything has been shivered around. Maybe I can quickly stay on that image. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here and get the chance to present the Norwegian Theatre Academy to you. We are a small experimental theater art school in the south of Norway. We're in Fredrikstad, about 100 kilometers south of Oslo towards Sweden. And we have about 35 students in a university college of around 7,000 students. So we are a little satellite also because we're the only arts education in that school. And it's beautiful to be connected to a larger body, but of course we also have to defend our rights to be that smaller school. What may be special about us is that we consist of two departments, one for acting and performance and one for scenography. We currently offer studies. There's a BA in scenography, there's a BA in acting, there's a master program in scenography and a master program in performance. We're very active in artistic research, and we also have a PhD in artistic research, which currently is undergoing a change or kind of a moment of more formal change. I ask you to keep that because I think it connects a little bit what you just mentioned before. When talking about these two departments, I very often say that actually conceptually there's a unity in our school. Because in the end, everything is about human action and interaction in space. Wherever human action happens, there's a space, and basically the spaces we create are for human action or dialogue or interaction, even if we cannot enter there. So we have one department that focuses on the action and interaction that's always in the space, and the other department that focuses on that space where this is happening. And this kind of unity also is mirrored in the teaching that a vast, maybe 30% of the classes, actually the scenography and the acting students do together, and those, to the largest degree, also independent of the programs they're enrolled in. So they don't operate as in the function of actors or scenographers. That's why I tried to, but again, PowerPoint has shifted here. Now it looks like a marriage with the two O's. I had it as a unity. That's the different approaches. What maybe also is a little bit special about the Academy, just as we spoke before, it's entirely English taught. Also because there's various within the Academy of the staff who don't speak Norwegian, and also because the students come from all over the world. And I just realized before, which was actually quite beautiful, that one of our first master students in scenography is now, she's Costa Rican, is collaborating, Alejandra, in Costa Rica. So networking obviously is a very, very important aspect, and that means also that for us, and maybe it also touches a little bit on what you had mentioned, is not just that we try to get as many different cultures as possible to fulfill, you know, the common political keywords of internationalization, but we really see the engagement and the discourse and the debates as a fundamental aspect of the education and of the teaching towards the staff, but also towards the students and what they can create together. And maybe as a last point to our program, it has changed a little bit, but about 50% of the teaching takes place with guest artists from all over the world. So we have 2 departments with 2 artistic directors. So instead of a dean, we have kind of a 3-headed monster or leadership consisting of 1 administrative director and 2 artistic directors who kind of share the burden, but also have the potential or the possibility to work in their respective fields as good as possible. And now we also have, for the different programs, program coordinators, and basically every term is curated anew every term. So of course we have a study program which we fulfill with all the classes, but every term basically looks different, fulfilling kind of very open structures, but looks different in the sense that we can constantly relate to current developments, tendencies, movements, discourses that happen in, so to say, the real world, and we can also relate to the different maybe needs or wishes or also challenges of the students. So it keeps kind of being a living organism in the whole education. Maybe some words about the approach to scenography, because the starting point maybe, and that relates probably also to my background, I'm trained as an architect and still in a way identify as one, having expanded my understanding of the world into theater, and I tend a little bit when being with architects to say, no, I'm a theater person, I don't belong to you, and when I'm with theater persons, I say I'm an architect, I don't belong to you, so that gives you a little bit of a distance. But mainly, our approach to scenography is the meeting of architecture and theater and the subsequent amalgamation. So what happens when they're not just sitting beside each other, but when they fuse. And this means the teaching or the understanding of scenography really takes scenography pretty much in the essence of what the word means. The workshops, of course, there's a lot about stage design. Oh, sorry, you can continue the slides a little bit in the background, if anything is visible. There's, of course, a lot of work and workshops relating to Theater scenography, or let's call it stage design, there's probably as much dealing with exhibition design. There's a lot also dealing with art in the public space. There's workshops in film set design. It even goes into political activism. You will see a slide that we're even working with olfactory scenography, so how you can define space with scent. So it's really stretching in all different kind of directions. And that doesn't mean that we're claiming that our students after their studies are set designers and memorial designers and theater designers. It's much more that we're trying to educate independently thinking artists and give them the tools to constantly keep questioning and developing their own trajectories in how they would like to address scenography. And in that context, maybe you will also see that it's a little bit more projects in terms of scenography, which not primarily kind of stage projects, but a little bit projects stretching into other directions. So there's a lot of work that happens in collaboration with external institutions, educational ones, or other professional institutions. A few words about kind of the philosophy behind scenography. In one way, the starting point is that scenography as such doesn't exist. So it's in a way we see it or approach it much more as an inner organizing principle. So we're looking at, and that's why again, there's workshops even going into scent, we're investigating all different constituents that can make a scenography. So of course you can build a structure, you can paint something, you can also create the music, you can create sonic scenography. There is many different ways. Of course, a text could also be a scenography. So we're exploring that in a way. Understanding scenography, one could maybe also call it as performative architecture. And I'm always going back and forward between architecture and scenography, because to me they're not exactly the same, but maybe, and not only akin, but maybe closer together than a lot of you maybe think about them. And what kind of the main trigger for the whole thing is, I mean, the essence of architecture is the void. It's, of course, we use material and we build something, but everything is about the emptiness inside. That's the same for scenography, even if it's on a stage or in an exhibition. That's the same point about town planning. This is something that maybe gets a little bit contested or jeopardized in current architectural developments, which have a very big focus on corporate identities. But basically, architecture and scenography is about the void. So, in a way, we're teaching the art of how to create potentials, or as I often also described it, about framing an unknown. So how do I create something where I don't know exactly what it's going to be? How do I create something that has a potential to be filled by others, to be activated by others, and hence also has a chance to develop into the future? And that means that scenography, in a way, can be very much only a recontextualization. It can be a reframing. It can be a change of perspective. So it's dealing with existing situations, with existing threats or constituents, and the scenographer is kind of weaving them together into a spatial narrative. And those threats, again, can consist of many different parts. And I think that's important to me also in a sense of where are we going to go? I mean, how is scenography developing? I mean, there's so much stuff around us. I think we really have to stop building the new. I think it's much more interesting to see how we can weave together existing threads, existing components to create something new. And that's not only, or that's not primarily kind of thinking in an ecological direction, but it's maybe more in a sense of a social, cultural ecological direction, because by working with existing parts, they all have all their associations and histories and identities connected to them. So in a way, by working with those parts, we will be much more effective to create to create new work. So one thing that we're also testing at the Academy is actually how much can we boil down scenography? What do I really need? And I have somehow this slightly almost spiritual conviction that just the moment before scenography disappears entirely, it's kind of best. So this is one of the backgrounds, and that also relates to the fact, if one really starts from all those existing parts, that you never can start from zero. So this whole idea, this hegemonial idea of the black box and the white cube, obviously is a total lie, because all black boxes have their traces, have their installations, their contexts where they are, how I get into the black box. And that's also in that context that we're very critical about this notion of site specificity, because in a way it's like talking about wet water or hot fire. It's true, but it's pretty much redundant, because whatever you do starts from the context where you had your project. Two quick things in respect to scenography. We very strongly related to inherent dialogues, and one is, and that maybe is a difference between scenography and installation, that scenography always relates to a theme. It doesn't really exist alone. It can be a text, it can be a music, it can be a person, it can be a topic, but scenography always consists, in our understanding, in establishing a dialogue with something and creating a field of tension with that. And there's a second dialogue, which I'm sure is true for all theater and also architecture, which is that it only exists in a dialogue with an audience. I can write a poem or paint a painting, but scenography only gets into existence once it meets a partner. So this is a little bit more ideological or philosophical background to our education. And just a quick two, because that was in the questions. Our education is very much practice and research based. We have workshops, we have various different studios, we have few technicians, but the students basically have to build everything themselves. It integrates costume education, it integrates light design. As we remember, there is no space without light. So whenever scenography students work with space, the question about the light follows any kind of creation in how to think, how to define something. And finally, the question to skills, which keeps to be my kind of conundrum now for many years. I'm very skeptical about skills, so I removed them as much as possible, because skills mainly feed into established art structures. And I think it's more important that the students figure out which skills they want to learn themselves based on how they want to tackle a work. So yes, we're having technical drawing, we're having CAD. I see these more as languages probably than skills to communicate space with each other. We have some skills training, but in a way there's always a question mark in the sense of how can we actually have more a toolbox that students can acquire the skills that they need themselves. And it's a conundrum to myself, because I'm very convinced if somebody really has the full skill in one thing, I mean, there's nothing I have more respect towards than skills. So I think if you have a skill in one thing, you can tackle maybe almost everything else. So that's a quick presentation. In this context, maybe our idea at the Academy is not to try to define scenography, but much more embrace it as a kind of a blurry, open structure, and kind of seeing this as a quality that it's constantly moving and changing its shape a little bit, as we can see at all the Prague Quadrennials. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Serge. Thank you very much, Serge, for your lively presentation. Our third speaker is Mr. Qin Wenpao from the National Academy of Chinese Theatre Arts. He's an award-winning costume designer and professor of stage and costume design at the National Academy of Chinese Theatre Arts in Beijing, China. And I'm sure that you have seen the display of his costume work and designs on the Chinese National Exhibition. Over to you, Qin. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Qin Wenbao, come from China, Beijing. Thank you, the curator Barbara invited me to participate in the forum. It's my great pleasure to share my thought to your guests. First, I will simply introduce my school and Chinese traditional theater to you. And then I show my different works to our listener. I have been teaching in the Department of the Stage Art of the National Academy of Chinese Theater Arts for 20 years. Our school focuses on the teaching of the traditional Chinese theater, also as now as a Chinese opera, and there are many well-known performing artists to teaching opera skill. The stage design and costume design of the Chinese traditional theater has a unique and real cultural tradition. Especially opera costume have a set of the wearing rules, and opera performance has been integrated into a completely performing system. In the past 10 years, Professor Alexander Baum in University of the Oregon had come to China, come to our school and published a monograph about the traditional Chinese theater costume. We always keep the connection between contemporary and the traditional arts. Professor Igor and other famous designers from all over the world also have been invited to our school for academic exchange. Yes. Yes. I have been fascinated by the unique effect of ink and wash change for a period of time in the past. I use a method of the painting to process ink on the fabric. Ink is one of the oldest black and white art forms in China, and also it is an extension form of the expression in Chinese calligraphy and painting. Ink painting in the life seem to have nothing to do with the stage performance, but it is the most original origins vision language and has artistic expression. I try different ink expression. Something like this is different. Sometimes use the ink, sometimes the power brush. I try a different. But it is the most original vision language and has artistic expression. The changing moment of the ink stimulate my curiosity, and you never know the exact effect of each stroke. This seems of the uncertainty which the ink stroke produces is just what I want to do. I want to express. I'm trying to combine ink painting with stage performance in experiments. The next, I will share two sets of works. Both often are my combination of the ink and traditional Chinese theater. Abstract brushwork and theatrical performance together endow the work with vitality. Li Bai was the most famous romantic poet of the Tang Dynasty in China. Seriously think about it. Of course, this kind of the fantasy, the trace left by the abstract brushwork is the image of self-emotion. The designer, brushwork, and the actor performance have one thing in common. They are both expression and vitality of the creator. As the poet created the portraits, thoughts and spirit are free, and I created it in the fantasy of the freedom. My brushwork appear in the actor performance, and they are complete each other. The abstract issues effect is former when the ink and wash over and combines with the actor performance on the stage. Meanwhile, the actor performing emotion the brushwork with ink, forming an abstract poetic expression. When the brushwork become part of the actor performance and the theatrical performance changes, the theatrical just happen. I was excited, but also amazed. Such a creative man with the brush in ink could lead to interesting material freedom and as well as wonderful creative memory through the combination with the performance of the actor. I finished the works with my postgraduate. I couldn't continue to use different math to explore the relation between ink and different character costume and the performance. This work is the Beijing Opera Impartition, which is the legendary story about the primitive water convention and agriculture cultivation of the three Chinese imperial Yao, Shun, and Yu in the ancient. The costume design for the characters is created by the improper painting combined with ink and wash painting and oracle bomb inscription. I paint on the cloth fabric, mainly use a mix of the ink and the acrylic paint. Acrylic paint is easy to fix on the clothing fabric. oracle bomb is corruptions are the earlier Chinese iconography used for the deviation, pray to the nation for good weather. I think I will use ink as a medium of the expression to create the costume for the theatrical in the play. The moment of the ink is free. It is like a portrait. It is not interpreting the text, but the expressing the artistic conception through the actor. Ink is a very traditional material and form of the expression. So I began to try to use this material in the different ways. I contemporate the performance image of the characters and improvise by the splashing on the unfolded fabric to the obtain the nation effect of the ink color change, which is like a painting between the flow and the nature, water, and abstract symbol. It is an emotional expression with ink. A person creation can't deal with that ink without bring in emotions when you see the nature change of the ink. That's all you see. During my teaching in painting, the knowledge in the textbook is not my main purpose. We need to practice our creation in the daily life. The stage art creation teaching need me to keep the curiosity and carry on the practical exploration for this. I finished that work with my postgraduate. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Next. Oh, next. Yes. Okay. I have recently started creating with card painting, and maybe I will show you more detail next time. Thank you for your coming, and I welcome everyone to communication more with me and give me more suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tim and Paul. Thank you very much for the presentation. Our fourth speaker is Richard Roberts, who is an Australian stage designer and design educator. He's head of design and production at the Victoria College of the Arts at the University of Melbourne. Richard, it's over to you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much. And I just wanted to express my gratitude for PQ giving me a chance to join my colleagues here and talk about this today with all of you. Ooh, it's very blurry indeed, that image. I don't know if anyone knows the Antony Gormley blind light, but it's a great kind of metaphor, I think, for entering into the world of the unknown world of artistic practice. Anyway, look, I'm going to apologise in advance because I'm actually going to read this speech because I did take Pavel very, very seriously about 12 minutes, and I've probably used up more than those already. So anyway, here we go. Engaging creatively with any project requires the designer to enter an imagined world that can initially be very unclear and uncertain. It's the process of design that brings that blurred space slowly into focus, and this can be quite a confronting space for any designer, let alone a student. For me, the role of the teacher is to provide the student with the framework of skills, both technical and conceptual, that allow them to confidently enter into that blurry space. Up until now, my approach to scenographic training has largely been in the undergraduate programs of either 3 or 4 years of length, with clearly defined pathways. Those programs have been driven by the principle that in order to express a design concept, the student needs to be equipped with the technical and collaborative skills in order to do so. Things like drawing, drafting, model making, etc. And as a consequence, those skills are placed early in the curriculum. This approach to training the designer also has the performance space as its, or theatre, as the classroom around which the curriculum has been developed. However, the Bachelor of Design, which is a 3-year undergraduate degree at the University of Melbourne and a relatively new one, arose, 6 or 7 years ago, and it has now approximately 2,000 students across the 3 years of the undergrad program. Performance design is only one of 12 majors offered in the degree, and it integrates dramaturgical thinking and scenographic practice within a broader design context. So Bachelor of Design students can experiment across discipline areas, and they really only even confirm their major after the first year. Alongside their major, they can complete minors and electives from across the disciplines, including performance design, which in that instance allows dramaturgical ideas and concepts to inform their work as architects or civil engineers or urban planners or any of the other majors that you can see up there. So it's a big find your own adventure in an undergraduate program. The performance design major takes a different approach to the teaching of scenography from the model that I described a little earlier, with the initial focus being on the development of conceptual skills as opposed to that intensive focus initially on technical and collaborative skills. It's also a curriculum built around the design studio as opposed to the performance space in the earlier model. It acknowledges that for students who are keen to pursue a scenographic career, the major should be seen as foundational. It should be regarded as the first 3 years of a 5-year arc of training, where in the 2 final years, a master's program provides the skills and knowledge where the artistic voice of the student that has been developed over those 3 years can be tested in the real environment of production, and the classroom shifts accordingly from the studio to the theatre. The major consists of a pathway of subjects leading to a capstone subject in the final semester. Along with a number of shared subjects with other majors, there are 6 core subjects that must be completed. The first 4 of these 6 are sound in performance, light in performance, the figure in performance, and space in performance. These 4 subjects in the major grew out of the idea that 4 common collaborators can be found in the performance design process, working in the realms of sound, light, figure, and space. And we thought very carefully about the order of the subjects as well. Sound as a primal language seems to be the logical starting point for this journey for a student. Then we add light, then we consider the figure, and finally the space in which the 4 elements are united. All 4 areas of study focus primarily on how each of them contributes dramaturgical power to a performance. In their final year, there are 2 key subjects that need to be completed, and the first of these is this one called Space Studio. It's a subject where the previous 4 areas are synthesised into one design project based around a single performance text. And when we say text, we mean text in a very broad sense. It can be a piece of literature, it could be a piece of music, it could be a piece of dance. Where did I get to? I just got lost in there for a moment. Yes, around a single performance text. The project that they do around this text is divided into 4 stages. In the first 3 stages, students are asked to respond to this brief, if you like, in the following ways. With a design proposal, firstly, that it combines space with sound, then a proposal that combines space with light, then space in the figure, and then in the final stage they are asked to combine all of these responses into a single design proposal for the text. And they use models, drawings, renderings, research materials, and crucially a process journal. Students are guided through this process by a number of teacher practitioners covering the 4 domains. This year's text was a play called The Visitors by First Nations playwright Jane Harrison. Jane was able to be present for a number of the sessions. We've used text by First Nations writers each year in this subject as we regard it as an appropriate place to begin an Australian student's deeper engagement with performance texts. And the following images are from student proposals for the visitors from this year's Space Studio class, literally just finished. The venue chosen for this project is the Grant Street Theatre, which is one of the theatres on the VCA campus. Actually, it's the photograph of the venue I showed earlier. And the scale of the models that we get the students to express their ideas in is 1 in 50. Students are encouraged to use digital tools to express their design ideas, but the analogue model remains the central design document. Students are asked to express simple lighting states in their models for particular moments in the text. And we also ask them to identify key moments in the text and consider how the placement of figures in the space might assist with the storytelling of that moment. We also ask them to consider the way light might change in their model and how this might assist in the communication of the play. With light, we are particularly interested in how they might handle transitions from one state to another. This is the final subject in the major. It's the capstone subject, which we call Performance Design Studio. It's a culmination of the major in performance design and is again centred around a single performance text, which has been chosen carefully to complement the one from Space Studio. It's also selected for the breadth of the design opportunity that it might offer the students. And some of the texts, for example, we've used The Tempest, we did Sophie Treadwell's play Mackinac, and this year and last year we did Sarah Rule's play, her adaptation of Orlando, the Virginia Woolf novel. The project is developed over a series of stages. It firstly begins with a creative development based on a theme that we might draw out of the text. For Orlando this year, last year the theme was transformation. And then the students got together with a group of second-year dance students and did a creative development over a series of weeks. Next, halfway through the semester, they are required to present an initial white card proposal for this text, covering all of the domains that we've looked at before: sound, light, the figure, and space. At the end of the semester, students are required to make a full design presentation of their proposal, which combines a response to space with at least one of the other domains. And this involves, again, a scale model, costume renderings, and lighting and sound proposals. Finally, they are required to present a design journal that documents the kind of journey that they've been on in the development of this work. The subject culminates in a design exhibition curated by the students, and each set of designs are accompanied by a framing statement of approximately 150 words. And we really see this as their development of a kind of key piece of work for their folio, which might allow them to then proceed into further study in a master's program, or off they go into the world to seek work in design. This image here is from last year's design exhibition, which was the first that we were able to hold after the pandemic, which is still going, of course. And here are a number of images, which these are all taken from that exhibition, actually. They're all proposals for the play, the same play in the theatre called the Sumner Theatre in Melbourne, one of the more contemporary theatres in Melbourne, used by professional theatre companies. The Sumner is chosen very deliberately because it introduces students to the design potential of a very well-equipped contemporary proscenium arch theatre with a fly tower. And again, while encouraging students to use both analogue and digital media to express their ideas, the model remains the central analogue design document. And you know, with the rise of AI, having something very analogue is very helpful, I think. It's a little bit more difficult to fake it. These are all photographs taken during the exhibition, and I think I've just got one more example for that. So look, I'd just like to finish off by talking about the trajectory of one of our current master's students, whose name is Ishan Vivekanantham. Ishan began the Bachelor of Design intending to be a major in civil engineering, one of the other majors offered in the degree. Having taken one of the early performance design subjects, he realised this was where his interest might lie. He completed the major and successfully applied for the Master of Design and Production in the stage stream and is currently completing his second year. I think his work is outstanding, and here are some examples. This actually is the proposal that he presented for Orlando, part of his final submission in Performance Design Studio back in the undergrad. This whole project was almost entirely developed online, remotely, with us zooming in to each other and sending model materials. This is a project from the first year of the master's program, several images of Ishan's model for Tony Kushner's play Angels in America, which is, well, it's very difficult to see up there, but it's in another one of Melbourne's contemporary theatres, the Merlin Theatre. In the first year of the Masters, we challenged the students with increasingly demanding design projects, also based in the studio, but alongside those are classes introducing them to the collaborative and technical skills that they need when in their final year they'll be placed on real productions. And these are images for production that's literally just closed in Melbourne, Inconsolable by the Australian playwright Raimondo Cortese, mounted in one of our studio theatres at the VCA, with third-year undergrad students from the acting program. In their second year, master students are assigned to projects developed both within the VCA and sometimes with external partners around us. Ishan is currently working for his final production on a project with the Australian Ballet. Ishan's work illustrates the intended 5-year arc for a performance designer through this program of the undergraduate Bachelor of Design and into the Masters. The strength of his work undertaken as a master's student has clearly benefited, I think, from the strong conceptual foundation built during his undergraduate studies, which started when he decided to turn his back on civil engineering and embark on a major in performance design. We're confident that Ishan has a promising career as a designer ahead of him, and we look forward to seeing him enter that blurry, uncertain space of artistic practice with a confidence underpinned by a framework of conceptual, technical, and collaborative skills. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard, for your presentation on your school's practices and the chances that you give to your students. The final speaker of our panel is Professor Jan Štěpánek, who's a Czech sonographer and a visual artist. He's the chair of the Department of Scenography at DAMU here in Prague. And some of you who have gone to DAMU to see the exhibition, he is behind the students who were exhibiting in the 4th floor.
In the 4th floor at the GAMU exhibition hall, yeah, Gallery of GAMU, yeah. So, hello, I'm very pleased to be here with you, and thank you very much. My text, I will be partly reading it, partly showing it to you. It's actually a part of a not a transcript, but I pull it out of an article which is being published in the near future. In Poland, and actually I was there taking part in a conference like 2 years ago almost, and this what I will be presenting to at this point of time, like 2 years ago, were future plans, and now our department is like going through some extreme changes, yeah, which I will be describing here somehow. Yeah. So firstly about myself, yeah. So, as mentioned before, I was for a long time active scenographer. I was teaching at the Academy of Performing Arts at the Janáček Academy in Brno, and I would very like to greet my very good friends and colleagues Jana Prekva and Maria Jiráskova, who've been my colleagues there for like 22 years, and this what the changes you will be seeing here, like in the next minutes, or I will be describing here. It's that they developed in some long time collaboration with them, and we influenced each other for a long time. So this is it. Yeah, I was also a lecturer at the Department of Fine Arts in Brno at the Atelier of Environment, and I was teaching manipulation in open space. It was many years ago, but it was a beautiful experience. Then I was a teacher of scenography at the Korean National University of Seoul, where I was invited to teach like opening up resources, like inner resources of people, of students, and to research in themselves. Yeah. And 2 years ago, I became the head of the scenography department at DAMU here in Prague, where I also studied like 30 years ago. So, and to describe the situation at DAMU, actually, it was founded in 1946 by František Troster, which was the grandfather of Markéta Fantová, the head over here of the whole thing. So this is necessary to be said. And the funny thing about this, that it was like this school is open like for many years, but there were only like 4 professors who were in charge of this, like Professor Pražák, Professor Dušek, and now it's me. And the situation in this academy was that my predecessor was my professor, and he was in charge of this department for 30 years in one piece. Yeah. And now I came over here, and there is like changes happening, let's say it like this. Yeah. The character of DAMU is a mainly theater school. Yeah. The students are absolutely and constantly from the first year on connected to artistic production and to theater. Yeah. The curriculum involves like scenography and costume, production design, which we newly accredited into an English program, directing, dramaturgy, acting, alternative and object theater, Department of Theory and Critics, and Department of Authorial Creativity and Pedagogy, and the Department of Drama Education. In the last years, these departments were quite isolated, not all of them, but scenography was very isolated. And now we are developing like a crossover collaboration with these departments, and it's like going very well. And we are preparing future projects, working on theory projects, working on artistic research, and developing a completely new or reforming a new PhD program right now. Yeah. As it's written over there, the students are simultaneously formed towards art and practical and professional experience from the first year on, and from the first year they collaborate on artistic projects with FAMU and with directors and actors. Yeah. So the structure of this course is like 3 years BA degree, scenography and costume together. Then you can choose if you want to go to a master degree for 2 years, which is either scenography or costume production design, costume and mask, or you can join like newly right now the MA degree English program for 2 years, which is either scenography and production design. Yeah. What we are preparing and what's like our nowadays new tasks, and we will be opening this in 2025. We are opening a master degree program for audiovisual design for live arts, and the content will be light design, sound design, and video. And we are developing in a small team of friends and colleagues of mine. We are developing and writing the accreditation and syllabi for this, and we are meeting other friends from other schools not to make mistakes in our new program, which we can avoid through this. Yeah. Our number of students is in BA and MA altogether about 35. Sometimes it's a little bit more. Yeah. The concept of philosophy, and this is actually what's changing right now, like dramatically. Yeah, usually before or traditionally, it was based on this German expression of Bühnenbild, yeah, which is like, as you see, dramatic space, dramatic character, dramatic situation, which you interpret into scenography, into a scenographical project, mainly on stage. Our cathedra was strongly influenced by Bauhaus and the methods of teaching of it, because Professor Tröster was one of Bauhaus students in the 2020s. Yeah. And most of the professors were traditionally thinking professionals, yeah, very exceptional teachers, but it was mainly based on classical theater, on making maquettes, models, technical drafts, and creating like functional scenographies, which would very well work well for the technical staff, and be very practical for theaters. So. Here you see one of our master students. That's her scenography for the Cherry Orchard, yeah, which she's done for the last finals. And then you start to see that she moves from a very close space into something more free and more counting with light. And yeah, over here you see a first-year student, which is again very quite traditional, old concept-like thing. So in our school we combine like these older methods, yeah, and there is something like a more contemporary, but it's not the contemporary content of scenography. It's like from the 80s, like. Is in the context of Joseph Beuys and Wilfried Minks, where scenography is seen like and which we deal a lot right now. It's like moving into more installation and mainly into relationship of space, object, space environment, recipient, conceptual artistic interference with space and environment. Yeah. For us now, I think the relationships which happen in space or which you can be aware of in space, yeah, and we necessarily do not only mean like spaces which are like real or realistic. We are in this content. I'm like very often speaking with students about a crossover of a spiritual space, of a space of imagination, of you as a space where images can meet and develop, yeah, and which can be reflected into space again, yeah. And we very much deal with immersiveness and its principles in its like virtual, social, and transcendental aspects, yeah. We, in the last few months, very much go towards like artistic research. So here you see this was a conceptual space of a first-year student that were her finals, where we dealt with classical fairy tales, and she was dealing with the death of her father, and she created a reminiscence of her grandmother's interior. Yeah, this another first-year student. She comes from a sculpture's background. She's finishing her master's now as a sculptor in the Sutna Academy of Performing of Visual Arts, and she's extremely conceptual. So these were her finals. So now you see the difference between the classical maquette and where we tend to, what we are doing. Yeah, and actually I will read this because, you know, this is like, for us, scenography is something like communication. Yeah, scenography is mainly concerned with the artistic representation of theatrical forms, literary and musical subject. Its focus is currently shifting to the field of a broader perception of space and environment in a social context. Scenography strongly explores the influence of the environment on the individual and society through visual art practices dealing with socio-cultural aspects of the influence of the environment, immersiveness and transcendentality of space, but also in a distinctly material form of gallery curation. So these are like the traces we are heading towards. Here, this is a project of a first-year students where we were dealing with classical Brother Grimm fairy tales. We have like simultaneous pillows or levels of teaching approach, like it's interpretation, art, theory, and technologies, practice and industry. Yeah, and here I try to describe some methods we are using in the beginning, like when we deal with interpretation, and it's a crossover of these methods, like it's reading, theater performance-based teams, awareness training, that's very, very important, which we work on with the students from the first year on, where they learn how to feel and analyze their emotions of space and atmospheres. Yeah, there's a detecting training. Yeah, there's a space environment situation process. Like this is this crossover of realities. Very much we force them now lately into questioning, into being curious, which is a little problem, but I will come later to it. Yeah, and a main thing which we created or which we are working on is like storytelling and creating their own stories, their own interpretational ways. Yeah. So in the artistic way, or the artistic pillow, which we deal with like now, we deal there with right now with quite a big problem, because scenography over here in this country for many years, how much time do I have? Okay. Yeah. Scenography in this country for many years was not being dealt like with as a visual art. It was like something of decorativeness, which was being used in theater, putting up decoration and stuff like this. So we now, and I'm not talking about skill, we are just very much pushing the students towards like not being like stereotypically skillful, as you said before, but that they get aware when they paint, when they draw, when they also do maquettes, because I see a maquette as an information. We don't see it as art. It's an information for workshops. This is how we see it. So we force them to have like this awareness, also in painting, drawing, sculpting, and it's very, very necessary to do so, and to go to push the students into this. We are expanding into non-traditional approaches like performance, installation, conceptual aspects, sound, video, and what we are mainly now in the last years, and also the professors and also the teachers, we are heading into artistic research. We became members of SAR like Society of Artistic Research in Norway, which is really great. And we have a great vice dean for research, which is Alice Koubová, and she very much supports this. She's a Czech philosopher, and we deeply collaborate with her. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the second thing, like, or the third pillar we have, like, it's like a theory, which was in the last years or last decades, theory at the DAMU, like, went somehow or concentrated only on the past. So we hired new lecturers from different educational environments. For example, here is Barbara somewhere, yeah. She's somewhere there, which helped us to teach like theory of contemporary scenography. She was teaching online from Philadelphia, our students in English. Yeah, we also would like to collaborate with Pavel. Yeah. Which will be great, and we are hiring other professors now to teach like contemporary story of light. Yeah, what is the philosophy of light in history, in arts? What, for example, was the meaning of fog? Yeah, or of darkness, or of shadow, like in the history of painting, yeah, and the history of perception. Yeah. We will have a class in dramaturgy of liturgic space being held by a philosopher. We have a contemporary philosopher who specializes in Greek history. And Greek philosophy, and he translates from ancient Greek, so he will have like a contemporary view on antique drama. Yeah, so we are very much doing this. Like we have someone who is very strong in contemporary visual regime, so he teaches the history of art right now. And we are collaborating with the departments of theory and critics and building a new theoretical platform, because in Czech Republic there is a big problem, like since the 1990s, that theoretically, yeah, the scenography was reflected theoretically until only the 1990s, the 2000s, and from this moment on, it has not been too deeply reflected. So it's a completely missing point, yeah, or it's a like wide ground with which needs to be somehow reflected, yeah, now, and so we are collaborating on this with the Department of Theory and Critics, yeah, and this is a very important thing. We found out that our students on the BA and the master thesis level went very low, like compared to JAMU, for example, to the Janáček Academy. They are on a much lower level, so we are pushing this very strongly, yeah. So, and there is technologies and practice. I will go through it. Yeah, the students are from first year on. Okay, I'll go through it. Well, that's technologies. You know this all, actually. It's in most schools the same. And yeah, and there is a teaching learning process which I will finish with, where we start from the first year on, and we do it with all students when they come new to school, and through on all levels that there comes, and these are phases: tuning, associative analytical reading, working with archetypical archetypes, training of associative reading plus analysis. Yeah. Then always comes a reflection and a feedback. Yeah. Collaboration with acquaintance DPs and dramaturgists. I hired directors and dramaturgists into my classes who teach with us now, young ones, and then we deal with historical and social context, detecting cultural roots, which is like most of my business, yeah, psychological research, and so on, yeah. So, and I will finish it now. There are some more, but yeah, here you see some words. And there is a student's profile. And at the end, yeah, there was thing. I had one more, because there is one big problem. Yeah, we have like difficulties. Yeah, and these are the difficulties where we are dealing with students' communication. So this is like what I wanted to mention, and maybe to ask you as colleagues, to discuss this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our 5 speakers. You know, teachers, when they get a podium, they don't know when to stop. So I am a teacher as well, but I was told that I have to know when to stop, and it is 15 minutes past 1 o'clock, which is the time we've been allocated. And I know that many of these schools have a lot to give, a lot to teach, but also a lot to discuss. And I'm really grateful that we could start this discussion. Please continue. Please please join me in thanking our speakers today. And let's continue the discussion over lunch. Thank you.